When it comes to self-care, we often think about the pampering types of self-care, like bubble baths and pedicures and massages and things like that. And while that's definitely a part of self-care, there's a lot more to it and a lot of other parts of us that need to be taken care of. So I started thinking about this and even doing a little bit of research. And I've put together 7 different types of self-care. And we're going to think about it like a pie chart like this. The 7 different types of self-care are physical, emotional, social, spiritual, intellectual, occupational, and financial. And during this video, I want to take you through a simple exercise that's going to help you figure out which areas of self-care you need to work on and exactly what kinds of actions you can take to do specific self-care activities. To help you with this exercise, I've created a simple workbook that looks like this. So pause this video for a moment, go print off the workbook, or gather some paper and a pen, and you can follow along with the exercise that way. All right, now you're going to turn to the second page in your workbook that says physical, or if you're working with a piece of paper, just write physical at the top of your page. And physical self-care is kind of the one we tend to think of the most. It involves taking care of your physical body. So those are things like getting enough sleep, eating the right kinds of foods, drinking enough water, exercising regularly, and taking care of any medical or dental needs and things like that. So the next step in the exercise is I'm going to ask you to pause the video in a moment and you're going to write down how you feel you're doing in this area of self-care or in this area of your life right now, just with the normal things that you're doing. So on the workbook, you'll see a few options to select from. You're going to select how you're feeling. And if you have a piece of paper, you're going to write it down. Maybe you're feeling kind of stressed and overwhelmed or burnt out in this area. Or maybe you're feeling excited and energized and pretty content in this area. So pick whichever words seem right to you or write in your own word. Go ahead and hit pause, take a minute to write it down, and I'll be here when you come back. All right, now that we've figured out where you stand right now in this area, we're going to move forward and start figuring things out. So if you're working with a piece of paper, I want you to draw a line down the center, and you're going to make 2 headings. One is going to say doing, and the other is going to say to do. And if you're working with the workbook, you already have this chart ready for you. So to start off with, you're going to pause me in a moment and you're going to write down the things that you feel you're doing in your life that are helping to take care of your physical self. So what are you already doing well? Go ahead and write those down. And now the interesting part, we're going to talk about things that you can do to take care of your physical self. And I am going to give you a whole list of ideas that will hopefully give you some inspiration, spark some ideas, and you'll have a feeling for which ones you want to write down that you think would be helpful to you. So you're going to use the other column of your chart to write down the ones that stand out to you that you want to work on. Okay, here's the list of specific activities and actions that you can take to take care of your physical self. See which ones stand out to you. Starting with regular exercise. Maybe you already know what kind of exercise you like. Maybe it's been a while since you've done exercise, or you've done it but you haven't enjoyed it and you don't really feel like you want to do it. We're going to try to find something that you enjoy doing so that you're going to want to keep doing it regularly. So some possibilities are going for a run or a jog or a walk. Or maybe you like to go swimming or to do yoga. Maybe you like to go rock climbing. Think about some of the things that you liked to do when you were younger. Did you play some sports? Did you dance? I used to do ballet when I was like 11 years old till the time I was like 14, and I haven't done anything with it since. But recently I decided to sign up for an adult ballet class. I've been to 2 lessons so far and I've really enjoyed it. I'm definitely not as good as I used to be at it, but I'm still having a lot of fun doing it, and I can tell that I'm going to get stronger as I go. And one last idea for regular exercise is to do something with a friend. Go for a walk and chat together, or sign up for a class together. Next is a balanced diet. How are you doing in this area? Do you need to spend some time learning a little bit about nutrition, maybe what your body needs? Take some time to learn about macros or calories or some of the nutrients that you might be missing. A while ago, I realized that I was not getting near enough protein for what I should be eating. What helped me was I downloaded the MyFitnessPal app. I just used the free version, and what it does is it lets you log the food that you're eating. I don't use it every day, but I'll take like a day or 2 or 3 in a row maybe and track what I'm eating on those days, just to kind of give me an idea of how I'm doing in a certain area and get a feel for what kinds of foods help me to achieve my goal or do the opposite. So the way that it works is every time you want to enter a food in, you can either type in the item and choose the amount that you ate, or you can scan the UPC code on the packaging of the food that you ate and then pick the amount of food that you ate. And the app calculates things for you. So it'll tell you how many calories are in a specific food, or how many calories have you eaten in the day. How is the balance between protein, carbs, and fat in that particular food item or in your whole day's list of foods. And you can look up how you're doing in different nutrients, things like fiber or a particular vitamin, or how much sugar are you eating. It really helped me to get an idea of what I was doing, what I could avoid doing, and what I could do more of. Whatever you decide to do in this area, pay attention to how you feel and start doing things for that reason, to take care of yourself. A few ideas for how you can improve your sleep. Aim for at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Try to have a consistent bedtime. Maybe you can set a time to aim for and put an alarm on your phone to remind you to start getting ready. Maybe you can work on the atmosphere in your bedroom. Is it quiet in there? Is it dark, relaxing? Do you have it set at a comfortable temperature? Maybe you want to remove the electronic devices from your room. That can make a big difference in your sleep quality and preparation too. And a few other tips are to avoid large meals, caffeine and alcohol before bed, and getting exercise throughout the day can help your quality of sleep at night. All right, let's talk about water. I struggle with drinking enough water. I just don't feel like I want to drink that much throughout the day. What I did that helped me was I got this water bottle, and on one side it has the time of day listed and an encouraging little note to remind me to drink more water throughout the day. Honestly, I don't pay as much attention to those things as I thought I would, but at least I have an idea in my mind that if I refill this a couple of times in the day, then I'm doing pretty well. Another part of physical self-care is having good hygiene. So this is regular showering, bathing, brushing your teeth, washing your hands regular, keeping your nails clean and trimmed. Now, maybe you have a sedentary lifestyle and you're sitting at the computer for the majority of your day. This is a lot of us. And a simple tip is to take breaks throughout the day, to get up, walk around, and do some stretching. You can set an alarm on your phone to remind you to do this more regularly. And let's talk about those medical or dental needs. Do you know that you're due for a screening or a follow-up that you need to book and you've been putting off? Is there a vitamin you know you should be incorporating into your daily routine, but you just haven't gotten around to doing it yet? For me, when I knew that I needed some physiotherapy for my shoulder, I put it off for months because I kept thinking I was going to do more research to choose the best physiotherapy. I did the same thing with eye doctors, actually, and sometimes you just need to set a time limit for yourself to choose who you're going to call and make the appointment with and just get it done. And finally, for physical self-care, let's think about those pampering items that are a little more commonly thought of. Do you like warm bubble baths at the end of the day? Do you like a hot shower? Maybe you want to go have a spa day at the spa or at home and do it yourself. Or maybe you want to book yourself a massage. These are all great ways to take care of your physical health. Okay, now you're going to pause this video if you haven't already while I've been talking and jot down the ideas that stood out to you that you want to try to improve your physical self-care. Now we're going to move on to the next page in the workbook and the next topic, which is emotional self-care. So what exactly is emotional self-care? This is taking care of your emotional well-being. So this can include things like expressing your feelings and setting boundaries, practicing self-compassion, and seeking support when you need it. So let's move into this exercise now and figure out how you're doing with your emotional self-care and what you could be doing to improve it. If you're working with the workbook, turn to the page that says emotional self-care at the top. And if you're working with a piece of paper, just write emotional at the top of your page. Next, we're going to rate how we're doing emotionally. And on your workbook, it has a list of descriptors that you can choose from. If you're just using a piece of paper, you just write down a couple of words to describe how you feel. So this could be things like, I'm actually feeling pretty good emotionally. Maybe you're feeling excited, energized, content, pretty good about how you're doing emotionally. Or maybe you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, and burnt out. Those are a few examples. You'll find them on the worksheet, and if you want to add your own words, you can. Go ahead and pause the video and take a moment to fill that out. Okay, now that you have a starting point of how you're doing with your emotional self-care, we're going to make a little chart. If you have the workbook, it's already there for you. If you have a piece of paper, just draw a line down the center with two headings. One is going to say doing and the other is going to say to do. And now I want you to pause the video again, and you're going to fill out the doing section of your chart with all the things that you're doing in your life right now that are helping to take care of your emotional well-being. Okay, welcome back. Let's go through some ideas of how you can improve your emotional well-being. As I'm going through the list, think about which ideas you think you would enjoy. Which ones sound interesting to you? And feel free to pause the video at any time and add the ones that sound interesting to you to your to-do list. I'm going to go through a list now of about 10 different ideas. The first one is mindfulness and meditation. And I've done several videos about this topic in the past, and I'll link to those in some of the cards and in the description if you want to check those out specifically to learn a little bit more about meditation or how you can get started as a beginner. The next idea is one I'm a big fan of, and that is gratitude journaling. I have this gratitude journal that I picked up a couple years ago, and I have bought another one for a backup when this one runs out. It just has space. This one has space for the date and 3 things that I am grateful for that day. And I'm not perfect about doing it every single day, but as often as I can remember to, I fill out 3 things I'm grateful for that day, and I try to mix it up with different things. It could be anything, something really small that seems like not that much of a big deal, or something really big that's really important to me in my life. I'm sure the concept of a gratitude journal is not new to you. You've probably heard about it a lot before, and I'm here to tell you that it really does make a big difference. If you want to try it, I highly suggest it. It's so easy, it doesn't take a lot of time, and it makes a difference to how you feel. Next is nature. Take some time to get outside and just be in nature and experience those surroundings. It's so calming and peaceful and centering to just be in nature. If you like to hike, get outside and combine this with a physical self-care item. If you like to walk, just go for a leisurely stroll, or if you just don't feel like being active, just get out there, sit down or stand and just be in nature. Other things that can help with your emotional well-being is not being afraid to set boundaries or say no to things. Another one that could potentially be in conjunction with this is seeing a therapist who could potentially help you with that and a lot of other emotional challenges. And going back to the gratitude journal idea, you could also do regular journaling. And actually, there are quite a few different ways to journal that can be really helpful. You could just be documenting your day. You could be talking about how you're feeling. You could just spill out all the stresses that you have in your day. And I've talked about that in a previous video as well. And that can help you sort through how are you feeling and why are you feeling that way, and even come to some conclusions about how to deal with those feelings that you might not be able to come to just through thinking it through. There's something about writing it down that really helps you to clarify things. Hobbies and creative activities can also be really good for your emotional health. Maybe there's something artistic you've been meaning to try. Maybe you could pick up some painting or drawing supplies, or go and pick up some knitting needles and some yarn and find a couple of videos on YouTube that could teach you how to do something that you've always thought would be kind of interesting to learn. Spending time with others can also be really good for your emotional health. So maybe schedule that girls' night, or set up that book club you've been thinking about doing, or ask a friend to join you on a walk, or to take a class with you, or meet you for lunch. Limit social media consumption. This is something I've also talked about a couple of times on my channel before, with limiting Instagram specifically. And along with limiting social media consumption, maybe you're doing a lot of consumption of news, and that could be stressing you out or damaging your emotional wellness. And finally, how are you doing in the areas of self-compassion or self-criticism? Maybe you could be making a little bit of a conscious effort in those areas to improve. But I'm sure you have ideas of things that you're doing already that you could share in the comments for someone who might be looking for some more ideas, and I encourage you to do that. What works well for you for your emotional well-being is probably going to change over time, so be patient with yourself and kind to yourself as you try to work through this and figure out what is good for you right now. The next is about social self-care. This involves building and maintaining healthy relationships with others. And this can include things like spending time with friends and family, joining social groups, and seeking help for things when you need it. So let's jump into today's exercise. we're going to work out how you're doing in the area of social wellness and what specific actions or activities you can start to take to improve this area of self-care for yourself. So if you already have the free printable workbook, turn to the page that says social self-care at the top. And if you're just working with a piece of paper and a pen, just write social self-care at the top of the page and we'll get started. Just like with each of the other areas of self-care, we're going to start by rating how you feel you're doing in this area. So are you feeling stressed, overwhelmed? Are you feeling pretty good, content, happy, excited, energized? Whatever it is, write it down or select the option on your workbook page. Now we're going to move on to a simple chart. If you're working with a piece of paper, draw a line down the center and put two headings, doing and to do. Now I want you to pause the video for a minute and fill out the doing section. What are some things you're already doing to take care of your social wellness? And once you've filled that out, press play again and we'll go through some specific ideas of other activities you could add to your list of to do in the area of social wellness. The first suggestion, and we've talked about this in last week's video as well, is to take the time to put effort into those relationships that you already have with friends, family, and colleagues. And if you've watched the other videos in the series so far, you're probably already seeing how you can combine activities for each of the different areas of self-care. For example, maybe you're going to take care of your physical wellness by going for a walk, and you're going to take care of your emotional and social wellness by doing that with a friend. Now let's touch on social media, because social media can be good or bad for your social wellness. So think about using social media intentionally. Maybe you want to join a group that focuses on a particular area of interest for you or a support group, but also think about whether you're spending more time on social media than is actually helpful to your social life in real life. And that leads me into my next suggestion, which is to reconnect with an old friend. Take time to make those in-person things happen. And speaking of in-person activities, sometimes you can get these things going regularly by scheduling reoccurring activities. Maybe you want to schedule a walk every weekday with a friend, or schedule a weekly play date or a monthly book club. Take the time to schedule some of those regular social activities that you'd like to have happening in your life. And then something to keep in mind when you are spending time with those people is to make a point of listening carefully. When you're having a conversation with someone, it can be really a natural inclination to spend time talking about yourself or to think about how things apply to you, which can be good conversationally, but pay attention to the ratio of how much you're focusing on you and how much you're focusing on them. And don't forget to really listen to what they're saying and what they're experiencing. Something you may or may not have considered including in your social life is community service. Think about the different types of social communities that you're involved in and whether there's something you might be able to volunteer to do to help them out. There are probably also things just in your city or town community that are needed. So take some time to do a little bit of research and see what's out there and what you might be interested in doing. And attend social activities. This could be parties, concerts, festivals, and if there aren't really any opportunities that you're aware of, maybe you can create one. And it doesn't have to be a fancy party, for example. If you're not really into throwing parties, just invite some people over, ask everybody to bring their favorite snack and hang out and chat. We talked about setting healthy boundaries when we were talking about emotional well-being, and this applies to social well-being as well. And social wellness is not just about creating a happy, fun, thriving social life. It's also about creating relationships that can be supportive to one another when things get difficult. So you have someone that you can turn to and rely on when you're going through a difficult time, and you can be there for others when they're going through a struggle. Now, I hope you found some good ideas from this list and added to your to-do list of things to try out. Next topic is spiritual self-care. This is finding meaning and purpose in life through things like mindfulness and meditation or prayer, spending time in nature, and engaging in activities that align with your values. Turn to the page on spiritual self-care, and if you're just working with a notebook or a piece of paper, just write spiritual at the top of your page and we'll get started. First thing we're going to do is take a moment to rate how you feel you're doing in this area of your life. There are a few options on the printable that you can choose from, or you can fill in your own. Once you're finished with that, we're going to turn our attention to the doing list. What are some of the things that you're already doing in your life to work on your spiritual self-care? Take a moment to fill out that side of the chart. And then you'll have a place to start from for working on your own personal spiritual self-care. The first specific activity I have on my list of ideas for spiritual self-care is meditation. And I have a couple of playlists that I've already created on this channel that I'm going to link to for you, because one is a list of meditation videos and the other is a list of videos all about mindfulness. Some of them are specifically on meditation, and especially meditation for beginners. The second specific spiritual activity I have on my list is prayer. And there are a few things you can do to get yourself started with a routine or a habit of prayer. The first thing I would suggest is to set aside a specific time of day that you're going to pray. And also think about the location. Where is a good place you can go to find some quiet time alone? And here are a few ideas of things to think about when you're starting to pray. One is to start with gratitude, expressing to God the things that you're grateful for in your life that you already recognize. Another is to share some of your worries and concerns. Share whatever's on your mind, whether it's positive or negative. It's also good to keep in mind others that you know that you may want to pray for because of concerns that you have for them or things that they're going through that are difficult. And meditation can be a part of prayer, and some people like to write their prayers down or make notes after the prayer about things that came to your mind while you were praying. Hopefully some of these give you some ideas, and really prayer can take lots of different forms, so it might be something that if it interests you, you might want to do a little bit of research on. Next is time spent in nature. This is something I've always found somewhat spiritually uplifting. From the time I was a little girl living out in the country, spending time outside in the backyard by myself, to the time that I was away from home for university, spending time studying or just sitting and thinking or writing out in the gardens at my university. And now that I'm an adult and a parent and I'm living out in the country again, it's something that I often draw peace and comfort and spiritual upliftment from. Now, a few of the items coming up on my list have also appeared in previous videos in this series, and I've gone into a little bit more detail in those videos about these topics. So be sure to watch those videos because they'll give you a full picture of some of these different ideas. So one of those is a gratitude journal, and I did show you my gratitude journal in a previous video. And this gratitude journal that I have has spaces for 3 things each day. We'll see if I can show you this here. So each day has a spot for 3 things that you're thankful for, and whether you have a gratitude journal or just a notebook, you can easily do that. What I've noticed about making a habit of keeping a gratitude journal, just 3 items a day, is that it really does make a difference to the way that I'm feeling in general about my life. And as far as spiritual well-being goes, it's recognizing God's hand in your life, and as you do so, it's like reinforcing this idea that you can trust God and that good things will continue to come. Even when you're going through difficult things in your life, you can trust that those blessings will continue to come just as they have in the past. And just as you can see all of the little good things in your life, you can believe and trust God that there are more to come and that He's going to continue watching out for you. Next is to perform acts of kindness, and I believe it was the last video that I talked about service, so go back and check that one out if you want to think about a few more detailed ideas for that one. You may want to look for a spiritual retreat or a workshop that's local that you could attend, or even a virtual one. Spending time reading scripture or other spiritual literature can be very uplifting and enriching to study those things and to look further into the questions that you have and look for more details and answers to your questions. And finally, self-reflection. Think about and take the time to write down your beliefs, your values, and your goals. Then once you've figured out what your values are, you can choose to do things that align with them and not to do the things that don't align with them. Some of these spiritual self-care ideas lead me right into intellectual self-care. Intellectual self-care is engaging in activities that stimulate the mind and promote personal growth. This can be things like reading, learning new skills, and pursuing hobbies and interests. And we're going to get into these things in more detail in a moment. First, find the page in the workbook that's called Intellectual and start by rating how you're doing in this area of self-care. Once you've done that, we'll move forward to the chart that has 2 sides, one for what you're already doing and one for things that you could be doing to improve. First, fill out the doing side with all the different things that you feel you're doing in your life to work on your intellectual self-care. Once you've completed your list of things that you're already working on in this area, I'm going to share with you a list of 8 additional things that you could be doing specifically to work on your intellectual self-care. As you're listening to this list of ideas, feel free to pause the video at any moment to add to your could-do list things that sound interesting to you that you'd like to try. A lot of the ideas involve doing and producing and working on things, but the first idea I want to share is about consuming. Whether you're consuming for entertainment or education, through reading or listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video, which may lead you to the second thing on the list, which is to learn something new. This generally starts with consuming and learning as much as you can about something before you start to put it into action and practice it. Now back to consuming, another idea is to go out to a cultural event or location like a museum or a concert or something like that. Here's one I think is really fun: to take a course or a class in something that you're interested in, whether that's something you go back to weekly or just a one-time event. I've attended fun little craft workshops at the library that are just a one-time evening event I can go to with some friends and sit and craft and chat. And I've signed up for classes that repeat weekly for quite a while. Something that takes less commitment with time or financial investment is to just sit down with someone and have a meaningful conversation about something that's important to you. And while you're by yourself, you can spend some time playing brain games, whether that's trivia or other puzzles. I can remember my grandmother doing this quite frequently whenever I would come over to see her, and she had a lot of fun with it, and it probably kept her mind strong. Next on the list is creative activities. That could be painting, writing, drawing. Pick a medium that you've always been interested in trying, and don't stress about being perfect at it. Just go through the learning process from the beginning as a beginner who messes up and isn't great at it, and just enjoy the process. And the next one is to think about and write about your personal experiences and beliefs and ideas, things that you're learning in your life. I'm often amazed by how much I can learn and sort out and figure out just from writing about things, whether it's just doing a brain dump and writing about everything that comes to mind, or writing about my frustrations, or things that are bothering me, or writing out what I feel I've learned. All of these things can kind of help you sort through what's running around in your brain and see it in a clear, concise way. And it can help clarify some of your thoughts and feelings and beliefs and understanding about things. We're going to do the 6th and 7th items on the list, which are occupational and financial self-care. We'll start with occupational self-care, so turn to the page that says occupational at the top. When I say occupational self-care, what I'm talking about is your work life. Things like setting boundaries, managing your workload and your stress, and pursuing career goals that align with your values and interests. So going back to the page in your workbook, take a moment to rate yourself on how you feel you're doing in this area, and then move on to the chart that says doing on one side and could do on the other. You're going to start with the doing column and write down all the things you already are doing to take care of yourself in this area. Once you finish that, come back to the video and I'm going to share a list of ideas with you of specific things you can do to take care of your work life and to balance that with your personal life. And speaking of balance, we're going to start off with the first idea as setting boundaries between your work and personal life. Some ways to set boundaries are to have clearly defined work hours and to stick with them. And if you're working from home, it can help to have a set aside specific area that's your workspace. There are also digital boundaries. Maybe you have a specific cell phone that's for work and you only use it for work. And maybe you set specific times when you'll be checking email, and beyond those times you stick with that and you don't check your email. And once you've set those boundaries, don't forget to communicate them and to maintain them and reinforce them when needed. The next specific thing you can do is to take breaks throughout your workday. Sometimes setting a timer on your phone can help remind you to do this if you're not already in the habit of it. And then another way to manage your days and your weeks is to prioritize tasks. Know which ones are most important or need to be completed the soonest, and manage your time so that you know you're going to complete those when they need to be. This leads right into time management. Use a planner, set up your day by time blocking, try organization apps and calendars. There are so many tools out there that can help you stay organized in this way. And while you're working on all these things, don't forget self-compassion. Don't be too hard on yourself. If you're not doing the best job in balancing things, just remember that it's a process work on improving little bit by little bit, and recognize the progress that you're making. And when you are finding things really difficult, don't feel like you have to put everything on yourself. You can seek support from family, friends, and coworkers. And when it comes to occupational self-care, don't forget that balancing your work life with your personal life is such an important part, which means you need to take care of all the other parts of yourself that we've already talked about in previous videos in this series. So don't miss those, because they're just as important for those specific areas as they are for your occupational self-care. When you're setting goals in your work life, think about whether those goals align with your personal values and interests. And remember, in your job, you can think about ways to be learning new things, learning new skills, because it's fun to learn, and learning can help you progress in your career and reach career goals that you've set. And of course, once you are reaching goals and seeing progression in these areas that you're working on, celebrate and reward yourself for that. Don't forget to recognize the progress you've made in the name of finding the next thing to work on. Of course, we always want to be progressing, but it's important to recognize the progress we've made as a step between finishing that and moving on to the next thing. Now, occupational success and self-care definitely relates to financial self-care, which is why I decided to combine the two into one video. So let's move into financial self-care now. Financial self-care is managing your finances in a way that promotes financial stability and reduces stress. And it includes things like budgeting, managing debt, and saving for the future. So find the financial page in your printable workbook and take a moment to rate how you feel you're doing in this area. Then move on to the chart that has the doing side and the could do side. Fill out the doing side with all the things you think you're already doing to take care of yourself financially. And then come back to this video, because I'm going to share a list of specific ideas of things you could be doing to improve your financial self-care. The first idea on my list is budgeting, and there are lots of different approaches to budgeting, and I would encourage you to look into those different approaches, because you may find that the traditional approach doesn't really work for you, which hasn't been the case for me and for my husband. We've definitely had a different approach to budgeting than a lot of people that I know, and a lot of advice that I've seen online, and I think it's worked pretty well for us. Regardless of what approach you take to budgeting, there's definitely value in tracking your expenses so that you can look back and see where you're putting your money and whether that's really where you want it to be. If you're not checking up on these, you can't make adjustments and improve what you're doing. Next is to have an emergency fund. Save up enough money that you can survive off of that money for a certain period of time, even if you didn't have any more income coming in for that time. And once you've established an emergency fund, it's a great time to start putting money toward paying off debts if you have them. And I would recommend avoiding debt wherever possible. Once you've done those things, take the money that you have that's beyond your needs and put some toward saving for retirement or saving for education or career development. And a big part of taking care of your finances is likely to seek advice and learning from experts. Whatever you decide to do, just as a general rule, I would suggest avoiding overspending and planning in advance and saving for big purchases. There are so many different ways to think about finances and so many different approaches and so many different types of incomes. Whatever you decide to do with yours, take time occasionally to review what you're doing with your finances and set new goals and make adjustments as you go. Thanks for coming along on this self-care journey with me. And if you have some ideas that were not shared in the videos, please do share them in the comments so they can become a resource for other people as well.